So here he is, Max Stokes. How you doing, mate?
I'm really good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, as we've done before, we've had a couple of people on already: Dan Bardell, Tony Daly, Simon Goodyear, talk about their top three games. So we thought we'd get the best of the bunch in you to go take a trip down memory lane and talk about your top three. So you picked some great games, mate. So we'll get into them a little bit later, but just for the listeners, just give us a little flavour of kind of how you got into supporting Villa.
Do you know, it's a bit of a weird one because probably the most common answer is, my dad used to take me down to Villa Park or whatever. But my parents not really into football, which is a bit of a strange one, really, because I didn't go to my first game till I was I think it was 11 or 12. And it was a horrible time to start supporting Villa. Yeah, I think my first game was in the 11-12 season under McLeish. Although we won our first game against Wigan, but honestly, all I've seen is pretty rubbish since then. But yeah, it was just like all my mates at school were into football and stuff, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, this is a little bit for me. I'll ask my dad to go to a game or something, and luckily he took me to a Villa one. Okay, they're all from Birmingham and from the local area and stuff, but not the most conventional way to get into it. But I've never looked back since. Got my first season ticket in the first year in the Championship, I think it was, and I've been going home and away pretty much ever since.
Great. And obviously, you set up the Villa on Tour YouTube channel. What was the sort of inspiration behind that, mate? And how surprised or pleasantly surprised have you been with the success of it?
It was a bit of a weird one because I've always been interested in like home videos with Playmobil or Lego and stuff when I was a kid. I've always been interested in making videos and stuff. So one day I wasn't the intention of, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, I'm going to build a following and be a big Villa channel or anything like that. It was just for my own personal use. I take a camera to a ground and just try and capture some goals, some celebrations, things like that. And it was just for me, really, just me and my mates to look back on. And it started to get a bit of a good following during the promotion season, the 10-game run. It just went absolutely mental because I went to every single game in the 10-game run, and people just really enjoyed watching reactions from the stands, like especially for people who can't go to games. It's so good for them just to experience what it's like to be in the stands. And when we were doing so well as well, seeing last-minute winners, seeing beating Blues away, things like that, people want to see it. So yeah, it kind of went from there, really, and people seem to really enjoy it. And at the end of the day, it's just me and my mates having a laugh, and people love it.
I think
I was going to say
on, Richard,
there's one video, Max, that I don't think you recorded of a certain individual in the crowd. You talk about last-minute goals. I don't know if you've seen Richard Sutherland's video when he was berating Steve Bruce for a good few minutes just before Connor stepped up and curled. Was it the winner or the equaliser in against Blackburn?
That
was a rough game. That was towards the end of Bruce, wasn't it? That was a rough one.
Yeah, I couldn't contain myself anymore, and it did get kind of viral on Twitter. But I mean, thankfully, most of your videos are people being slightly more either euphoric or slightly more calm. But I think I think going back to that, like me living in Newcastle, obviously I do go to quite a few games, but I always used to search out your videos like after a game that I couldn't go to, just for that reason, to kind of experience what it was like in the crowd, in the stands, and to kind of get a flavour of what the fans were saying and stuff. And I guess for people like, abroad or, or America, across in America and stuff, I guess that's the real kind of beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely the motivation behind it, because Villa is such a big club, and they have got fans literally everywhere. You go anywhere, you'll probably find someone in a Villa shirt. So to see people, especially in the comments of videos as well, you'll see people saying, "Oh, great video, love from Thailand," or wherever in the world. And it's just so great to see that people watch these videos of me and my mates on a coach having a drink at the football from all over the world, and that's definitely the motivation. And I just can't wait to get back. It's not the same since we haven't been there, so I just want to get back and hopefully do what we do best, really, on Villa on Tour.
Yeah. So when you're there, Max, first game back, you're in the whole end. How are you going to feel?
Probably just emotional more than anything. Since I started going, I don't think it's been this long without going to a game, and everyone's going to be in the same boat as well. Like, it's not just you that hasn't been to a game. everyone's going to be in the same boat. You're going to be able to see old faces that I haven't seen for over a year. And that's the best bit. People that maybe don't go week in, week out, they probably may not understand that you start recognizing people like me and you, Rich, for example. Like you just recognize people that you go to the games with and just have a drink with, have a laugh with, and things like that. So that's definitely, I'm probably looking forward to that more than the football, really. Just seeing old faces and just having a drink and having a laugh with people.
I think also because of the importance of that first game back, not for the football reasons, but for the, almost it signifies the end of the pandemic to a certain degree. You said it'd be emotional. For me, it's going to be hugely emotional. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? Sometimes Aston Villa can be one of those three things, but you'll never be walking out and seeing Villa Park for when you go to games. As you say, whether it's next to a stranger that you're chatting to, it's someone that you've had a few beers with at the pub before, but that almost community feel, like they're your people. You walk out to Villa Park and whether there's a roar or you just feel that warmth and that connection. And the point you made there, actually, Max, is really interesting. Everyone will be in the same boat. Everyone will have been away from their passion for so long. And we can't really have you on without, and I didn't mean for this to be a segue into this discussion, but obviously the Super League chat recently, the owners of clubs have almost tried to take that passion away from the local fan and packaged it and tried to take it to different parts of the world to make a bit more money out of their commodity. How has that made you feel? And also, what would your opinion be on it if it was Aston Villa that were, one of the six English clubs going for it?
I'll probably feel sort of betrayed in a way, because this whole going to watch Villa at Villa Park, it's you at the football, you share the same passion of these people around you. You don't get that in any sort of walks of life, like you and 40,000 other people together experiencing the same thing, having the same feelings, and just being in the same boat, sharing the same passion. You just don't get that. And the whole Super League is so sad to see. And I know I work with a Man City fan, for example, who's been going since 1970. Like he's not just one of these glory supporters, and he's in the same boat as everyone. And I think it's mad to see that the fans of these top six clubs feel the same as everybody else, saying they hate it. You've seen from the protests, everybody hates it, and luckily it looks like it's finished now. But it's so sad. And if that was Villa, I'd just feel horrible, because Villa is run by the right people. Perslow's come out, I think he was on the Rage, he's saying all the right things. Dean Smith, he's a local lad, and even in the press conference before the Man City game, he's saying all the right things. And it's just so great to see that the people at the top of the club and throughout the club, they get it, that you can sort of relate to them in a way, which if you support one of these big clubs, there's no way in a million years you relate to any of these people at the top who are just greedy.
Oh God,
no, well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree.
I know we go on.
I was going to say, you mentioned the Man City game. So unless, Richard, you want to throw something else in about the Super League, it might be a good time to discuss the performance against one of these super clubs.
No, I was literally going to segue into the same thing, mate. So
I beat you to it. Sorry.
You beat me to it. Yeah, so obviously, it was potentially to be expected. You could probably have two hats on, I guess, Max, in terms of looking at the game from last season when we got beat 6-1, and then to kind of only lose 2-1, so to speak, and see that as a bit of a positive. But also, you could maybe look at it as we're in this kind of malaise at the moment where it doesn't matter who we're playing at the minute. We're kind of just turning up and we're playing pretty much the same way, and we're kind of plodding onto the end of the season. So. Yeah, what did you make of it? Do you see it as a little sign of progress, or do you just see it as, just where we are at the minute?
I think the word to describe it would be it was just flat, wasn't it? And it was to be expected, because I think now is it 2 wins in 10 or something like that? And it is fizzling out, unfortunately, because we were so sort of electric to watch in the first half of the season when we were getting these unbelievable results, 7-2 at Liverpool, 3-0 at Arsenal, taking on these big sides. And when in the first half of the season, whenever you come up against anyone, you wouldn't fear them, no matter who it was. The way we were playing, you just would not fear anyone. And at the moment, it's pretty much the exact opposite. You sort of going into a game, no matter who it's against, you sort of know what you're going to get. It's going to be a bit turgid. There's not going to be too much goal mouth action or anything, because we haven't looked like scoring for quite a while. And yesterday was kind of the same. I thought the performance was okay, but when you play a side of Man City's quality, they could have all of their first team out and they're just bringing 11 other world-class players. I think they're a bit of an anomaly in terms of football because they're that good. They're phenomenal. When they've got players who are the same age as me, which is just bizarre, and Phil Foden just pulling the strings and tearing Matty Cash apart. He was brilliant last night, Phil Foden, and he's running the show. But yeah, fair play, Man City. It's one of them games, but I think if we get the same sort of turgid performance against a West Brom, for example, at the weekend, that's where you've got to start worrying. But when you lose 2 games in a row against Liverpool and Man City, you can't really moan too much, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost it was the perfect start, and it was just so surprising to catch, Man City on the hop after 20 seconds, and you think, maybe we're onto something here. But what did you think of the goal? It was pretty well worked, wasn't it?
It was a really good goal. Yeah, I think we got the free kick, and I barely sat down, but it was a really good goal. I think it's great thinking from Tyrone Mings. We love the sort of down the line, sort of curling whip ball, and we're good at that because Ollie Watkins is the kind of striker who's always willing to run after everything. He'll run and run and run till the 95th minute. But it was a good goal. It was really good awareness by Watkins as well. And I love McGinn in this sort of further forward role because he had a decent start to the season, but he wasn't scoring goals like we'd seen in the previous season when we first came up. Like he scored against Tottenham, scored against Arsenal away. He was fantastic. So we're seeing that more now, hopefully. I think, especially with Barkley coming out of form and him not looking up to the races by any stretch of the imagination, I think McGinn in the number 10 role is definitely the way forward, especially we've seen him do it for Scotland as well. I know it's a different beast playing in the Premier League, but he just gives us that something else, a little bit of energy going forward. I think that was his first goal since the Liverpool 7-2, wasn't it? So it's good. It's good for him to get back on the score sheet as well. But yeah, hopefully we can just maintain a little bit of positivity, and hopefully I'd take top 10. I'd take top 10 right now because it could have been so much better as well. We were pushing for these Europa League places. It could have been better, but if you say 10th, I'd snap your hand off, and hopefully we'll just go again next year.
Yeah, so, I think the thing with McGinn is just that him playing in that further forward position probably takes him out of that kind of passing and trying to control the midfield game, because I just don't think that that's his strength. Like he was giving the ball away quite a lot yesterday, trying to kind of control the game, and where if you put him in that more advanced position, he's more kind of making runs into the box to arrive at the ball, to put it into having a shot or that final pass. Whereas when he's deeper, he's having to set moves up, and I think that's where he's found wanting to try and play a quick pass or trying to play a crossfield pass, and he tends to give it away quite a lot. And I think that was part of the frustration for me yesterday, and it was kind of Louise was kind of doing the same thing. And I think there's some issues in midfield that need to be addressed, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. When I think of a number 10, I don't think of John McGinn. I think of someone with a bit more creativity, a little bit more flair. I think John McGinn is a very good offensive central midfielder, playing alongside a defensive midfielder. And we've tried to play him in that kind of holding number 6 role to accommodate a Ross Barkley, for example, or the formation that we play with 3 up top. And he's certainly, I agree, both. He's certainly better playing further forward than he's playing as a defensive midfielder. But I don't know. I just don't think. You mentioned, Max, that at the start of the season, teams feared us. I think we probably fear ourselves now because, you give the ball to McGinn, you don't know if you're going to get it back. You play the ball along the line to whoever it might be, El Ghazi, and you don't know what's going to happen with it. And we had a Spurs fan on not so long back, and it was just before the Spurs game. And he was saying that, I'm not looking forward to coming to Villa Park. You're going to give us a good game. And what the point we made to him there is the same point that I'd make now. I think people come to Aston Villa expecting more of a competition, and then they get to Villa Park and they get on the pitch and they're like, oh, is this it? Like, without Jack Grealish, we don't really have. We'll have the odd scenario. Great free kick by Mings, great run by Watkins, great finish by McGinn. But across the game, we don't take games to teams. Now, I know the pandemic has changed the whole concept of home and away. But still, if a team comes to Villa Park, you want to try and control the game a little bit. I appreciate against the Man City, it's pretty hard because, look, Phil Foden's wonderful, but he gets more time on the ball than maybe a Jack Grealish would get, because Phil Foden isn't Man City's star man. As you say, they could have rested all the team last night and put 11 other world-class players on. Man City come at you from every different angle, and every player is a threat. But I think it's too early to say that Aston Villa are on the beach. We're 6 games left, but that phrase you use, Rich, about that we're plodding through games, and as you said, Max, like almost we're fizzling out, and it'll be interesting to get your view on this, Max, because a couple of podcasts ago we spoke about how you judge Aston Villa. Is it season by season? Is it we've progressed from last season, so therefore it's been a good season? Or should it be, well, before Christmas we were really good, and for the last 4 months we haven't been? So surely that's a period of time where you can go, well, what was it about before Christmas that made us feared by other teams, that made us exciting and offensive minded to now, as opposed to you get to the end of this season, you go, well, 10th, 11th, 12th is great, but the impact of fizzling out towards the end of this season, the impact that has on next season, I think is huge. I think it has an impact on who you sign. It has an impact on the motivation of the players that started the season off so brightly. But I mean, do you see it as it's progression, so therefore it's all right, or do you think that there's some issues that need to be figured out at Villa Park?
I think it's a bit of everything, really, because you see occasionally on social media, on Twitter and stuff, people say, "Oh, look, we were playing Rotherham and Blackburn and Millwall a couple of years ago." But how long do you sort of say that for? Next season, when we lose to Burnley 1-0 at home, are you going to say, "Oh, 3 years ago we were losing to Rotherham and Blackburn and things like that"? So I think, okay, you can look at it like that, but on the other hand, when you're playing sort of turgid football at the moment, you have to sort of say, look, forget that. We're a better side now. We've come a long way since then. We've got better players, and we have higher expectations. That's in the past. So touch on your point as well about clubs coming to Villa Park and expecting a little bit more than what they're actually getting. You look at a side who are mid-table, like ourselves, and are quite solid, and we've got in the top 5 best defensive records, and sides are going to expect better. So that's the frustrating thing as well, because it is so inconsistent in terms of what we saw at the start of the season to what we're getting now. And I don't think it's all on Jack Grealish. Obviously, when you've got a player of that quality and you've got a player who's world class and is so far above anybody else, in that Villa starting 11, obviously he's going to have a massive impact. But we were poor with Jack Grealish. I think
I agree,
at that Brighton away game when we drew 0-0. We had Grealish then and we looked awful. There was games around that time as well where we did look awful, didn't look like scoring goals. So there is a little bit of a worry there. I think the midfield's been one of the biggest issues this season as well, because at the start of the year it was consistent. It was Louise, McGinn, Barkley, and it was working pretty much week in, week out. But even when you play those 3 now, if you were to do that, which we haven't seen for a while, it just wouldn't come off, which is a little bit strange, really. But I think if you do what we did in the summer last year, when you repeat that, you're getting sort of 5, 6, maybe 4, 5, 6, top quality players. You improve year on year, and it's a slow process. You look at Man City, who are 11 years into their sort of projects, and we've got promoted 2 years ago. It's you've got to have a little bit of perspective in that way as well. So I think it's a bit of everything there, but hopefully we'll have a better year next year than what we're seeing at the moment.
I think if you what gives me confidence actually is the recruitment that we have done. Majority of the signings that have worked out. You've got some players that aren't performing as they should, but they were with us in the Championship. You look at our defence; it's fantastic. I see in the background you've got Martinez's shirt behind you. He's second in the clean sheet ladder behind Ederson. He's 1 game away from equalising with Brad Friedel's record of 15 games. The back 4 is fantastic. You've got Ollie Watkins, who will be a future England striker consistently. You keep hold of Jack Grealish, but there's that bit in the middle, and you think there's probably 4 players that need to come in, and the good players that we have got probably also need decent competition.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. I think it's quite rare for what we did in the summer, we picked up, was it 5 or 6 players, and pretty much every single one of them's come off. I think you look at Traore, he has good weeks, bad weeks, but overall, everybody's worked out. And I think if you can repeat that year on year, that's only going to benefit us massively. And like you said, we've got really good building blocks in terms of the goalkeeper and the defence. And so I think we had probably the second worst defence last year, and now we've got the third or fourth best. So to come that far in a year is mental. So if you put yourself sort of 4 or 5 years in the future, it's really encouraging to see what we could be. And it is a little bit doom and gloom at the moment because, like we keep on saying, it is sort of fizzing out a little bit. But perspective, 3 or 4 or 5 years time, it looks the way we run and the players that we pick up, our recruitment, pretty much everything, the way the club's set up and the people we've got at the club already, the players we've got, pretty much everything. The young side as well, that's a good point. We've got a really young side, one of the youngest in the Premier League. So look, it's really encouraging. We've got to be patient as fans, and the only way is up, really.
Yeah. I think just finishing off on this game, and before we cheer all the Villa fans up with your top 3, mate, is just, I guess it was just, I think Smith echoed this in his comments after the game in terms of the goals that we did concede were pretty soft, particularly that second goal. And then, to kind of have that advantage of the extra man to then have a chance to get back in the game and kind of waste that, but then also not really kind of lay a glove. Like, it didn't seem like anyone was willing to take responsibility and really try and commit players. We didn't really make a tackle. We didn't really put a foul in against them, obviously, other than the Cash one. But it was kind of like, it was a bit passive, wasn't it, in the second half? And we really could have done with someone just taking the game by the scruff of the neck and just going, right, come on, let's try and get some out of this game. We might as well lose 3 or 4-1, trying to get back in and draw in 2-2, or even winning 3-2. So I think that was kind of the most disappointing for me, the kind of goals that we conceded and then not really laying a glove on City. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we are a little bit soft, aren't we? I think when I was watching the game last night, I was looking at that midfield and thinking, we don't have a Souček. We don't have a big, massive, someone that opposition sides will look at and think, oh, Jesus, he's a good player. He's someone who will kick me in the legs, for example. We just don't really have that. You look at Louise and Nakamura, who are a little bit, they were nowhere really last night. And opposition sides aren't really going to be scared of them. So I think we do need sort of like a hard man. That is something that we're missing and we probably haven't had for quite a while. I think you look at, I don't know, Jedinak in the Championship times, he was sort of that man, for example, but we don't really have that. I think, the midfield is somewhere that we need to look at in the summer for sure. But yeah, we didn't look. If you concede great goals to opposition sides and you hold your hand up and you say, "Oh, fair play, that's a screamer," then you just got to hold your hands up. But when you concede in silly goals, we said that all season as well. That's an annoying thing. We do concede silly goals, and look, we do have one of the best defenses in the league. So if we didn't concede those stupid goals, where would we be? That's one of the things. And the second goal last night is the epitome of that. Look, Emi Martinez has probably been our best player this year, but it's just a lack of concentration. One of them things that does cost you in the end.
Yeah, no, I think you've summed it up pretty well there, mate. Definitely. So let's take a trip down memory lane and go through your top 3. So we'll go in, because I think you ranked them, didn't you? 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. So 3rd is November 2018, Aston Villa 4, Birmingham City 2. So I mean, first of all, like, just that scoreline just says it all, doesn't it? And what a crazy game it was.
It was mad, and sort of normally in derbies you get tight affairs, maybe a 1-0, not many goals, but this one was just mad. And I think we just come off the 3-0 win against Derby away where we were fantastic. It was sort of Smith was new in, he'd been there a couple of months, and it was just crazy. Like, I think it was it was my 3rd or 4th game watching Villa against Blues at Villa Park, and I'd never seen them score against us. So when they score sort of 10 minutes in from that corner, you're thinking, oh Christ, is this the time where I finally see us lose to Blues? But it was just much. Yeah. When that Grealish header goes in, obviously you've scored 2 minutes earlier, so you're going to go mental. But the fact it's Jack as well, it was crazy. And obviously we have to talk about the Hutton goal. Just one of the most incredible moments. Honestly, you won't see anything like that at Villa Park for a long time. Just an absolute cult hero who doesn't score that many goals. It wasn't just a goal either. It was a ridiculous goal.
I know. Well, before we get there, before we talk that through, we'll go play by play with it. But Yeah, I mean, like you said at the start, at that time, Smith fairly new into the job, and has kind of had a bit of a rocky, like won the first couple of games, then lost, and then it was kind of the start of a really start of the makings of a good run. But Birmingham were also equally, I believe that they were on the same points as us at that time,
They
and
were,
they had
yeah.
a decent side. They had Che Adams up top with Jutkiewicz, and like you said, they caused us a lot of problems at the start of the game, and Jutkiewicz scored off that corner, and then Rich, you mentioned to me that Che Adams nearly scored to make it 2-0.
Well, yeah, I was watching some of the highlights earlier, and it was. You talk about Villa sometimes making errors with set pieces and what have you. The Blues' first goal was exactly that. Glenn Whelan got blocked, and he was just free. I think it was Abraham on the line, and it went through his legs. And a few minutes later, Adams, a fantastic cross on the left-hand side, and he just cannoned off the post. And you just think, if that had gone in, he could have been a totally different affair. But I think that kind of sent a bit of an electric shock through the Villa team, and after that, it was mainly Aston Villa in control.
It sort of worked in our favour, didn't it? Like them hitting the post sort of woke us up 100%. I think we literally went down the other end and scored. There's a great clip of, I think it's from Sky Sports, and it's filming the Blues fans when they hit the post. I think the majority of them think it's gone in. And that's a funny one. But yeah, those 2 goals in 2 minutes from Codger and Grealish. I've never obviously you get good celebrations at away games, but it's quite rare that you get such mental celebrations at home as well. And I was in K4 that day in the upper Holt end, and it's always pretty class up there. Everyone stands up and stuff like that. So honestly, it's just absolutely unbelievable that day.
Yeah. And Jack obviously scored. That was his first goal in the derby, wasn't it? And he obviously said that it was his dream, to score that goal, and that celebration that he did as well as the crowd was just phenomenal, wasn't it?
You don't see him scoring many headers either.
No,
I can't think of another header that he scored.
Yeah, no, I don't think he has.
And he really missed, but he was a great
cross. Yeah, great cross. And Adoma set up both of them. To be fair,
he did fantastically well. And yeah, the run. I mean, there was a. I think Blues probably thought he was offside, but he came from so deep that when the cross came in, he was well onside. And then you look at reactions. We spoke earlier about how Aston Villa reacted to Man City going down to 10 men, not being able to land a glove on Man City. You look at that Villa team, and okay, granted it's a derby and it's the Championship, but we took the moment and we made Blues pay for missing the Adams chance, for example. It's interesting. I don't think you'll ever go to a Villa Blues game at Villa Park and not be impressed with the atmosphere. Only 2 days ago, on the 20th of April, it was a 13-year anniversary of Villa beating Blues 5-1, and that's one of my favourite ever games. And it's the only game I've ever had to go home afterwards and have a lie down in a dark room for about half hour, because it was so electric. I don't know why it was on the news the other day, but Cahill's kind of overhead bicycle kick at Villa Park when I think we beat Blues 3-2. So when we're in the same league, that's the first fixture that I always look for. When a Blues coming to Villa Park, and there's always the jokes. It's an easy 6 points if Blues are in our league, but they put a performance, as you said, Richard. They were on the same points. There was. It could have been Blues that had gone on that run, and Aston Villa had fallen away. And if you look at the difference in, okay, I don't think Villa would have ended up like Blues are now, just because of the financial investment that we've had. But yeah, it's weird that there's moments in games where something happens, whether it's a missed opportunity or a big challenge, or whatever it might be. Or I think what we had in that team, you had some really good experienced characters. You had Mings was still playing at the back. You had Glenn Whelan. You had Adoma, who'd been around the Championship for a long time. You had, and we'll talk about him in a few minutes, Max. You had Alan Hutton, who was just, arguably not the best right back in the world, but such a character, such a force for us in that league. And I think after Jack's goal, it was the penalty, wasn't it? Abraham's penalty to make it 3-1. I don't know if VAR had been used in the Championship, perhaps it wouldn't have been given. I think he was a little bit.
Stonewall.
I mean, you can't take away from the beauty of the touch, how he brought the ball down. But I thought he brought that
push.
penalty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
But then I suppose we thought we were in we were kind of in the easy street then when he made it 3-1. But credit to Blues, they got it back to 3-2, and it was a bit of jeopardy then, wasn't it?
Yeah, you go 3-1 up and you think, okay, we're going to take the mickey here. It could be another 5-1.
Yeah.
But when they scored the second and they're running back to the halfway line with the ball under their arm, you're thinking, oh, God. Because
here we go.
Normally with Villa, you can tell in the first 10 minutes how the game's going to go. But that was such a roller coaster of a game in terms of, okay, we started horrifically. They could have scored twice and we're 1-0 down. And then we have the euphoria of scoring 3 in a row. And then they score again. So it's down, up. Like, it's one of them. But yeah, the Abraham goal sort of sealed it in most of our minds with them scoring that second one. It was a good goal as well. I think it was a ball over the top from Che Adams and Pedersen finishes it. And it was sort of nervy times then. But again, just like the Che Adams chance hitting the post, it sort of woke us up to think, right, we can't be complacent. This isn't over yet. We need to go and get another one. And we did.
And what a one to get. What a goal. I don't know. I think Hutton still probably dreamed of that every night. I know I would.
You see by his celebrations as well. His celebrations are fantastic because I think he'd scored at Hull, didn't he, first game of that season?
Yes.
And that was mental. I was at that one, and I think it was just, rather than celebrating the goal, you're just screaming because you're just so amazed about what you've seen.
Yeah.
But he's such a cult hero as well. And he did have his critics, but I think he got to the point where he wasn't the best player in the world, but it was just his passion and the fact that he was willing to do anything for the side and run his absolute socks off. And that's why he'll always be a hero. And that goal was just something else, like picking up on the halfway line. I think he hated Blues as much as all of us, which is great when you've got someone on the pitch that you can sort of relate to as well. And I remember like after the goal as well, he put in a massive challenge on the halfway line that could have seen him get sent off. But no, the celebrations, the goal, everything about it was just incredible. And when he scored as well, you just turn into strangers and just looking at them and thinking, did that just happen? Like it was just incredible.
It was almost like the old sort of proverb, like the parting of the Red Sea, because wasn't it? Because he just ran, he was just kept running and he kept running and he kept running. And then it was like he came into it onside onto his left foot and he was like, well, I might as well just place it in the bottom corner.
I'm here now.
Used left foot before as well.
Yeah. And then, as you say, I mean, the celebrations were just unreal. And I think it's the commentary, isn't it, where it's like the whole 10 rises to the man they call the Scottish Cafu, and it was pretty fitting, wasn't it? And you talk about iconic moments and all these sort of games around, right back to that one you said about Gary Cahill. They all seem to have some sort of iconic moment, and that certainly was it for that game. And as you say, he won't forget it, and I don't think you'll ever forget it, Max.
Yeah, I think that was another bit of commentary as well, where he's halfway to Mosley. That's absolutely fantastic. And look, if you score in a derby, you're a hero in my books, unless your name's Gary Gardner.
Fair enough.
But you mentioned earlier, Max, that you're from Redditch, so you must know a few Blues fans, being in the south part of the city.
Yeah, it's sort of Redditch it's not in Birmingham, it's just south of it, but it is a sort of Blues area. I think Villa's more north Birmingham, isn't it? Obviously, Villa Park's north of the city centre. So I think obviously you got Sutton Coldfield and Great Bar and stuff like that. They're definitely Villa areas. I think south of the city is more Blues, maybe. So I do know a lot of Blues fans in Redditch, and I do get recognised in Redditch from Blues fans giving me stick.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's always an experience. But no, it's definitely maybe a little bit more Blues than it is Villa. But it's more, it's probably 50-50 in Redditch, which is all part of the fun.
Well, at least you could have walked around Redditch chest out for a few days after that game anyway, couldn't you?
Oh, 100%.
So look, it's such any game where we beat Birmingham City is a fantastic game, and that one, watching it back today, thank you for selecting it. It brought back some fantastic memories, and you talk about Hutton being an icon and like always, almost being one with the fans. That celebration from Jack Grealish, you could just see how much he meant to him, and he is okay, he's one of us, as in he's a Villa fan, so that passion pumps through his veins, and it's always nice to see a Villa fan go and score against Birmingham City. I mean, was it the game after or a couple of games later when he we beat him 1-0, he scored the winner, and there was that incident on the pitch. I think situations like Grealish scoring that goal and almost kind of connecting with the fans over that, one of the reasons that it's kept him at the club for so long. And you spoke earlier about Dean Smith being, being someone that can connect to the fans and you can trust, and then they're not going to betray you. And I think the times that we've spoken about Dean Smith and perhaps some of the poorer games Aston Villa's played, hopefully the one thing that's always come through to the listeners is that, like, we really want him to do well. He's a fantastic guy. You mentioned Great Bar. He's from Great Bar. I don't know if you've ever seen the video when I think it was after Villa got promoted, and there's a reporter in Great Bar and they're interviewing someone, and it turns out to be his mom. Have you seen that? And they're talking about it.
Yeah, that's class, that is.
And like, just to know that he's walked the streets that we've walked, whether that's Jack or whether that's Dean. So when you see two Villa people in Jack Grealish and Dean Smith come together to put it over on the Blues, like that's always a good day.
It's always rare. It's rare in football, isn't it, to get that? A club captain
it's
and
massively
manager.
rare. Yeah.
I can't really think of anyone else. Obviously, you've got, I don't know, local players, but not a club captain who's one of the best players in the league, as well as a manager who's doing so well that you can relate to on so many levels as well. I think we are really, really lucky with that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think Dean Smith, being the Villa fan he is, and having that connection with Jack Grealish, probably was one of the reasons why he signed the extension at the start of the season. But that's game one. That's number 3. I'm excited to talk about number 2 and number 1. If that brilliant game is number 3. So number 2, Richard, introduce.
Number 2. Do you know what, Max? I was at this game and it was unreal. But I understand why you put this in, and I think it's because of the celebrations on your actual video. Because I must have watched it about 10 times because it's crazy, like the way that the game was set up and the celebrations in the game. So it is Sheffield Wednesday 1, Aston Villa 3 in, was it March 2019?
Yep,
it was April, I think. I think
April
it was the
2019.
sixth game of the winning run, and
right.
The reason I put it in there was because I think it was the first ever proper last minute winner that I'd ever seen. I think I've been going home and away for a couple of years before that. I'd never seen us. I think there was the Sheffield United Snodgrass one, but I wasn't actually at that one. So it's the first last minute winner that I'd seen. And like you touch on, I think we'll come back to the celebrations, but it was such a massive game as well because we'd won, I think, 5 games before that. We'd beaten Blues already, beaten Forest. I remember lots of games coming up, and we still weren't anywhere. I think that was the game where we just got into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it got us into 5th or 6th. But you're right. It was touch and go, and it was Steve Bruce managing Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. They were kind of on the edge of the playoffs as well. Like they only needed like 1 or 2 wins, so it was quite pivotal for them in terms of propelling them into the playoffs. So it was a really big game, and a lot of fans now looking back on it say that week was kind of the defining week for sort of getting Villa promotion, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the game after as well, a lot of people talk about that was the one where they started to believe that, right, we can actually do this. But like the previous game we talked about, we conceded first in this game.
Yeah.
I think again it was like 10 minutes in and you're starting to think, oh right, this is where it starts to unravel. We've won the previous 5, but right, it starts to fall apart now. But yeah, they go 1-0 up and it was a decent goal. And I think there was like 4,000 or 5,000 Villa fans who packed out behind that goal. And normally I like the sort of smaller away allocations, like you core 2,000. But when you get 4,000 or 5,000 Villa fans there, it is a different experience. And I think it was just so good, so good.
Yeah, I mean Hillsborough's. It's one of those kind of special older grounds, isn't it? Where if you get that full end and it's rocking. I think every game I've been with Sheffield Wednesday, it's been a full away end with Villa fans, and It is. It's a special atmosphere. I don't know what it is about those old style grounds, but when the singing gets going, it echoes right around the whole ground, doesn't it? It's unreal. But yeah, I mean, they did. Yeah, they scored early, and we were watching again the highlights today, and Sheffield Wednesday had a good side. Then Barry Bannon was pulling a lot of strings in that game, and it was a real end-to-end kind of touch and go game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I think it was a little bit worrying when we conceded first. And like you said, we love, I love those traditional grounds. I love Hillsborough. I love just grounds like that. I think the other side of the city, Sheffield United as well, they've got a fantastic stadium. They're so much better than these bowl stadiums. I don't want to pin anything on your Leicesters, Southamptons, Middlesbrough, Derby. They're all sort of the same. So when you go, it was my first time at Hillsborough, that one as well. And I just absolutely loved it. It's such a proper ground. I think Sheffield Wednesday have got a good set of fans as well. So when you've got two sets of fans that are going at each other, I think their core supporters were close to the away end as well. So when you've got a big game, you've got a full away end, you've got a class stadium, you've got good home fans, it's just a recipe for a really good occasion.
Yeah. And then so it gets to kind of towards the end of the first half, and I think it's a raking ball from Mings, and now Andre Green was playing, and
just kept it, didn't he?
Yeah, just keeps it and cuts it back, and there's McGinn in that position that we like him in, just arriving in the box, and it was a lovely finish, wasn't it?
It was a great finish. Yeah, it was sort of outside of the nose, inside of the football. He sort of opened up his body to caress the far corner. It's a great finish, and the celebrations class as well. And just the celebrations from Villa fans were class, from John McGinn himself and the Villa fans. It was just unreal, and it was just an equalising goal at Sheffield Wednesday away. But just the celebration from the Villa fans, you never. There's nothing quite like it, is there? It was absolutely good. It was just so good, that was. And I think it was 1-1 at half time, wasn't it? Going into that
1-1 at half time, and then I guess that was kind of the only half of the story, because second half, again. Sheffield Wednesday came out really well. Again, Barry Bannon what they did well was, obviously Bruce knew Grealish was the real danger man, and he kind of kept him really quiet, and that sort of allowed Sheffield Wednesday to play, and they got a penalty midway through the second half. And I guess what are your thoughts there, mate, in terms of that? You know, obviously going 1-0 down in the first half, thinking, oh, this is the run coming to an end, and then was getting back in it and then conceding a penalty. You know, like myself, I was thinking, this is real touch and go now, like whether we're going to end this run.
Yeah, it was another roller coaster game, wasn't it? Ups and downs, which I love. But yeah, the jubilation was when we equalised. I was like, okay, right, we're back on track now. We're going to go on and win this. But when they get the penalty, you're starting to think, okay, we went a little bit too soon there. And I think a lot of people, when people talk about this game, they forget about that penalty save from Jed Steer. And the celebrations from that as well were just like we'd scored a goal. It was absolutely class, even though it was down the other end. But Jed Steer, he's an absolute hero. I think he's been at the club so long as well. I think it's 8 years or something like that now. And look, it was a great save as well. When he saved that, again, the tables turn, and you think, right, we'll go on and win this now, because it just gives you that lift, doesn't it? And obviously, I'm not a footballer, but you can just imagine when your keeper saves a penalty, it just gives you that lift, doesn't it? And it was a great save from him, and it set us up, really, didn't it?
Yeah, and then we left it late, very late. I think Codger had come on, and he maybe had a chance.
He had a bicycle kick, didn't he? Oh, that was awful.
And he fluffed his lines, and you think, that's it. It's going to fizzle out into a draw. But then Grealish gets a bit of space, frees it up to lays it off to Codger. Codger has the shot, and it's parried out to the old man Albert Adoma to put it in on the rebound, and then cue the scenes, Max.
There's so much to talk about with this goal. Because Codger has the shot, and you think when the keeper saves it, that's chance over. But it falls to Adoma. It's a really tight angle. And what I love about this goal is everybody sort of goes, as if the chance is over. But then the absolute silence in the away end when Adoma goes for it. And it's such a strange goal as well, because it's not a clean taken goal or anything. The keeper gets a hand on it and sort of pushes it into the side of the net. And you can't really tell when it's gone in. And then that moment when everybody realised, right, the net's rippling, it's gone in. And immediately I'm in the top tier, and I'm sort of 5 or 6 rows back, steam down to the front, and you're sort of running down the front. Because I love Hillsborough for that, because in the top tier you can sort of run down the stairs and run straight down the front. You've got the whole freedom to run across like the whole of the thing, and there's everybody just going absolutely mental. Adoma celebration as well, doing the old man thing, what Bruce has said. Just everything about it was just so perfect, and like you said, the celebrations were just absolutely mad. Just disbelief, joy, and just everything about it was just unreal.
Yeah. And that wasn't the end of it. Go on, sorry, Rich. Sorry, Rich.
I was just going to say, like, this has got nothing to do with the game, by the way. Just your YouTube channel. How is that? You spoke then about, Codger has the chance and he goes silent and no one really knows what's happened. How is your YouTube and channel and your videos going to be affected by VAR? Because there is no like instant, joyous celebration anymore. VAR's almost kind of poured in a load of dilution into any celebration.
It's horrid, absolutely horrid. Can you imagine if Adoma scores that, the referee's just going like this, he's got his finger to his ear, and turns out Adoma's offside? It just absolutely ruins it. Absolutely ruins it.
You've legged it down from the top of Hillsborough right to the front, and then like Eddie Land's going, "Oh no, what have I done?"
Sorry, everyone. It's mate. Honestly, it's VAR is awful watching it on TV, but when you're in the stands, or at least on TV, you can see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
But when you're in the stands,
it's horrible.
My God, it's going to be awful. There's going to be riots. I said this on Twitter. There's going to be people rioting in the stands because it's just the way they operate it. Okay, I don't think the technology is the issue, but it's the people operating it and the time they take, and just everything about it is awful, and it really doesn't work. And they need to do something, hopefully in the summer, so that when we're back, it's sorted in some way or another.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And obviously, just on that game, if VAR had been there and taken that time to check the goal and kind of all that, then what followed wouldn't have happened in the way that it did, because we're still celebrating going 2-1 up. All of a sudden, Elmo's getting free down the right-hand side, playing it into the box to Tammy Abraham, and he then wins the ball back and slots it in straight away, and we're like, what is going on here? How have we managed to turn it to 3-1?
Genuinely, I hadn't finished screaming. I don't think anyone in that away end had finished celebrating. I was still down at the front, like people under my arms, people going mental, literally still shouting from the earlier goal. I turn my head and you can see Abraham and his long legs trying to get to the ball, and I think the chance has gone because it sort of goes past him, doesn't it? And then he reaches out with his long legs, and so it's just like it trickles in under the goalkeeper, and it's just jubilation again, because like I said, the celebrations hadn't finished and everyone just goes mental again, and it's just it was just absolutely unbelievable, absolutely class.
Yeah, and just finishing off on that game, I think you captured it so well on your video, because I think when that game finished, I don't think the singing stopped for a good 10 minutes after the game. It was just that every week we follow, just going and going and going. It was just incredible, wasn't it, in that away end? And that's that old stadium feel. Like when you're singing, it's just echoing around the stadium. It was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was so good. I think it was chance of Brucey, what's the score? I think we were in there for so long as well. I think they were taking the nets down of the goal, and there was still 5,000 people behind the goal still celebrating. And even when you're walking out the stadium in the concourse, everyone's still celebrating. Everybody pours out onto the streets. Everybody's still singing, going back to the coaches. Everyone's still going mad because that jubilation doesn't leave you for so long, and we've literally just scored. It was just mental, and everyone just hugging and being surprised that we'd just scored when the game's over. All the players had gone off the pitch. All the Sheffield Wednesday fans had gone home. It was an empty stadium, empty pitch, apart from 5,000 people behind the goal. And that's one of the main things that I miss, because you watch games on telly, and as soon as that final whistle goes, that's the end of it. Like that's it. You can watch a bit of analysis if you want, but look, just being in the stadium, there's nothing quite like it, and it's something that I miss. And hopefully we can have more last minute winners in the Premier League when we're all back, because that's what makes football what it is.
Absolutely,
mate.
So Villa go on that run. The 2 games we've spoken about so far, we're in that run, and then we get into the playoffs, and we beat West Brom 2-1 at home. A Connor goal and
Tammy penalty.
Yeah, it was Tammy penalty, wasn't it? Jack got fouled, and then we go to the Baggies, and that's your number one choice of your games. it's it's a really tight affair from what I remember. I went to the home leg, I didn't go to the away leg. And I remember it almost like, we've discussed it a couple of times when we spoke about the Sheffield Wednesday game and the Blues game. It was almost, when things haven't gone our way, it's kind of like, oh, this is the end. The bubble's about to burst here. But we've got so far, we could almost touching distance after what happened versus Fulham the season before. Like, it was our chance to put that wrong right. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was Dawson scored midway through the first half.
Yeah.
But I take it you were at that game, Max.
I was, yeah.
The nerves. I mean, you talk about the jubilation when Villa score goals, but that jubilation, that euphoria, didn't come till right at the end. What kept you going during the game? What made you still think this is Villa's time?
I think it was just adrenaline, really, because games like that, people might be surprised that the Blues away game where Jack scored the winner after being punched isn't in my top 3, but that's partly because you just feel sick in derby games. You just feel sick and you don't enjoy it as much as people think you may enjoy it. Unless you're in the moment of celebrating a goal, you don't enjoy derby games because of the sheer fear of losing or throwing away a goal or seeing opposition fans 10 meters away from you going mental and rubbing it in your face. So it was just adrenaline that night, because there was half time, there was full time, there was half time and extra time, there was full time after extra time, there was the wait for the penalties, and just everything, waiting and the nerves. And it was a hot night at the Hawthorns as well, and it was just horrendous, and just the joy that we'll come on to was something else. But I think you get the walking up to the ground, it wasn't just like a standard league game or anything like that. You had the feel of a massive game. And we had the playoffs before, the away leg at Middlesbrough and things like that. But this just felt different because, like you touched on, what had happened the year before, this was different. And it sort of felt like, with us winning 10 games in a row, this is our playoffs, this is our time. And there's a picture of Dean Smith afterwards, isn't there, saying one more. And it really felt like this playoffs belonged to us and it was our time to get promoted, rather than the year before where it was like, okay, we probably should have got second. We've fallen off a little bit. Fulham looked the better side. We were a little bit nervy, but this was just something else.
Yeah, what struck me watching it and watching it again was the atmosphere that to their credit, West Brom generated. It was a hell of an atmosphere that night, and that, I mean, they would have gone into that game thinking, you know, we can really put it on Villa, and we can really get, like, we can go through. And then obviously when they get that first goal in the first half as well and put us under a lot of pressure, they would have been really believing. But that atmosphere was incredible, wasn't it, for West Brom? I mean, what was it like in the away end and being in around that atmosphere?
Yeah, to be fair to them, as much as I don't want to say it was good. I think they had I forgot what the song's called, but the song they played before the game, where everybody's giving sticks to each other. It was good, to be fair. And when they scored that goal to take it to 2-2 on aggregate, you're thinking, God, this is worrying now. But it was a bit weird actually, because when they scored that goal, I never sort of got the feeling that we're going to blow it. I always had belief. I think there was a period in the second half where Jed Steer, every goal kick, he would accidentally kick it to an Albion player, and Jacob Murphy, I think it was.
Yeah, he had a chance. Yeah,
wide.
But you're right. They never really carved us open, did they? They had quite a lot of pressure and a few set pieces, but never really any. You know, like we talked about the Man City before. You know, they never really carved us open with some incisive play, did they?
It was nothing really too serious. I think it was it in extra time or was it normal time where they had the man sent off? I think it was right at the end of the game.
Yeah, it was 80 minutes.
Yeah. And at that point, I said earlier when they scored, I always had belief, but at that point, it ramped up a bit. I always thought, right, this is our game now. West Brom, like you said, they're not putting it on us too much. This is our game. We're going to have chances now, because that was before the sort of era where Villa play 10 men and they throw it away. We'd never experienced that before, so we actually capitalised on it. And that full time where I'd never been to a game before where it went to extra time, so that was a new experience as well. Just everything about it. I think it was getting late at night as well, because it was a 8 o'clock kickoff or something like that. So it was getting late. It was dark. It was hot. It was just new. It was new for me. I've never experienced anything like that. It was incredible.
It's interesting, isn't it? We mentioned earlier in the podcast about little moments that change the course of games or the course of seasons, and that double leg playoff was full of them. You know, West Brom took the lead. I remember Glenn Whelan gave the ball away and Dwight Gale got in, and it was a fantastic finish by Dwight Gale to put them in the lead. And Villa had to show character, probably something that they had in abundance during that season towards the end, and very much, you know, something they had last season after Project Lockdown or Project Restart, whatever it was, you know, when we came back playing games. And I think that's probably something that we've missed since Christmas as a unit. You know, I was watching the highlights of the West Brom game, and the unity amongst that team. Like on the pitch afterwards, you had physios, you had coach, like everyone was in it together, and I think we missed that at the moment. And yeah, I think as the games went by, everyone kind of got that feeling that our name was on that cup, and it was our year. And then when we get to the penalties, you know, most derbies are quite tight. I think, you know, we look at the Baggies derby from earlier in the season, until Jake Livermore got sent off, it was still quite tight, and we only really opened them up right towards the end. But we get to penalties, and I bet you couldn't believe your luck, Baggies go and miss the first two.
Yeah, that was mental. I think Jed Steer saved the first
Yeah.
one. I wanted to celebrate, but I sort of thought, right, okay, he saved it. Let's all calm down. It's only one. But when he saves two,
Yeah.
and I think we scored our first two, didn't we? Scored
Yeah,
our
yeah. Well, it was
Connor and Jednak.
obviously, yeah, but like Steer did that. I don't know whether you would have seen it or paid any attention.
I missed
to
it at the time. It was only
But when he stared down Holgate and kind of set the scene, so to speak, and then saves it, and then Connor scores. Hegazi, he saves it, and then Jedinak just puts that penalty away, and he just gives that look to the away end. Like, did you notice that? Did you notice that bit?
I did notice that, and I'm sure everyone who was in that away end will say it, but I felt like he was just looking at me. Like everyone in that away end will say that he was looking at them, but it was just mad, the sort of connection between the Villa fans in that away end and the players on the pitch. You could just tell that everybody wanted it so much. And I think Albion scored their next one or two, and then we scored. I think Jack scored as well, which was good for a pretty weird run up.
But missed, didn't he?
Yeah, he missed.
Yeah, that was for us to win as well. That penalty was for us to win. And when he blazed, it was an awful penalty as well. There's no power in it. He just kind of floated it over the bar. It was an awful penalty. And you're thinking, oh God, because I think Albion scored after that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an awful one. And you're thinking, right, okay, we might just blow this here. But that Tammy penalty was sensational. I think when I was in the stands, I didn't notice it clip Johnston's feet. It was only when I watched it back, I was thinking, oh Christ, that was close to being saved. Like, I thought he'd put it the completely other side at the time, but Johnston does get feet on it. But when that goes in, and you see all the players run towards Grealish sliding on his knees, and like you said, physios and just everyone from the bench just running over to us, mate, it was just, I've never ever experienced anything like that. And to be honest, I don't think I will for a long, long time.
No, and you guys got quite from your like vlog, you guys got quite emotional as well during that moment, didn't you?
I think my mate Owen was the first to start crying. It's a bit of a weird one, because football is an emotional game, as we know, etc. But I've never got to the point where I'd start like fully starting to feel the tears. It was mad, and it was just something else. Like, he started crying, and then you just stand there, look around you see everyone going mental, you see what's going on the pitch. In your head, you're thinking, right, we're going to Wembley in a couple of weeks. Just everything hits you like a wall, because it's such a split moment when that penalty goes in and just everything hits you. It's quite hard not to get emotional.
Absolutely.
At the time as well.
Yeah.
It's the relief, crazy. It's the euphoria, it's the we've done it. And interestingly, I don't think you've probably noticed this, but the three games that you've picked, in all three of them, Tammy Abraham stood up and took a penalty and scored. And I think I noticed during that season that he was a level above, other than maybe Jack Grealish. You could tell he was Premier League class. It was the maturity. It was how he carried himself. It was he didn't worry about pressure. And yeah, he hit his foot, but Johnson's foot as he went in. But I bet Abraham would have put all of his millions on him scoring that penalty. And it's, yeah, you look back now and you go, if he'd missed all those penalties, you know, like the pressure that must have been on. Listen, Tammy Abraham's probably never going to listen to this podcast, but knowing that there's so many Max Stokes stood in the away end, that like it's their everything. I remember being your age, and you know, it's Aston Villa's your everything. You're home, you're away, you're talking about it, you're thinking about like what the formation's going to be, injuries, and I mean, you've also now got a platform that you've utilized in YouTube where you can share that experience with people, as you mentioned earlier, all over the world that don't get to Villa Park. And please continue doing that, because it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. But you look at how like Villa probably still was, and when we go back to football will be your life, right? So to have that moment with those players, because they were on the pitch for so long and there was that real connection. I remember, you know, looking at almost how Steve Bruce left us and the disconnect between the club and the fans, and Dean Smith and that team like built that back, and that West Brom game, because at Wembley you're so far away from the pitch, there's so many thousands, tens of thousands of people, you don't have that intimate almost connection that you have at away games. But you're right, you know, you'll live a number of years before you get something like that again. So, you know, I can understand totally why it's your first choice. And when we do these as well, Max, whether it's you, whether it's Tony Daly, whether it's Dan Bardell, like it's a pleasure for me and Rich to do it, because we relive those moments as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, you picked 3 fantastic games, and yeah, I think if you haven't listened to our podcasts, listen to the ones that Dan Bardell picked, listen to the ones that Tony Daly picked, and you know, you might, Tony Daly's and mine and Rich's, you'll probably find a few kind of grainy videos on a website somewhere, but it's still that connection. It's still people like, whether with Tony Daly, that was the anomaly. Like, he's living his dream on the pitch, but for everyone else, they're just fans, and it's a different player. It's a different journey. It's a different result, but that connection never changes. That hugging of strangers, that just being almost being tribal, that you experience that, and in 30 years' time, you'll talk to someone that was there, and you've got that connection, and you know, you'll meet Villa fans across the world. It's weird. You spoke about Villa fans being all over the world. I went to my brother lives in New Zealand, and I went to see him Christmas before last, and we went up to like his holiday caravan that he's got on the northeast coast of New Zealand. Like, you drive 30 minutes, you don't see anything, and then you just drive into this little surf town, and within 5 minutes of being in this caravan park, a bloke walked past in the Villa shirt. And I was like, and I said to my brother, "Who's that?" He went, "Oh, that's John. He's a big Villa fan." And we spoke for about 2 hours that evening over a couple of beers about Aston Villa. He'd never been to Villa Park. He was a Kiwi. He'd never been to the UK. But there's people like that, you know, that listen to these podcasts, that watch your videos, that get that connection that they just wouldn't get without it. So I hope VAR doesn't dilute the impact that your videos have, and keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, like, embrace those moments where it gets inside your heart, and you know, you get emotional, because that's the rawness that Aston Villa.
That's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you can't replace that. You can't replace that with anything. So when you look at the detachment that owners have, that taking their club to Super League, like that's what they don't get. That it's a community, it's a family. And listen, you know, the 3 games that you picked, I don't think anyone else would pick them, and you know, it's a sign of the age that you are, and the experiences you had with Aston Villa. But it doesn't, you know, dilute the impact that they've had on all Villa fans, really. And yeah, like, we are now where we are because of that run that you were very fortunate to live through and experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going back to the video thing as well, like crying with a camera in hand and my mates next to me both crying and stuff, and just capturing it all and being able to.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't like the vlogging thing, because they're thinking, oh, how can you enjoy the game when you're looking at it through a camera? And I can see that from you know, I can sort of see that point. But look, you can see by our reactions, they are raw, that we're not living it through a camera and stuff like that. We are living it just like everybody else. It just happens to be that we're recording it. We're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the game just like everybody else. And the fact that I can put that onto YouTube and I can look at that for a long, long time. People all over the world can look back on that and just feel how we did that night, because it was sensational, and feeling like that and just sharing that with other people as well. It's an absolute pleasure, and that's the reason why we do it, and that's the reason why I vlog and put it on YouTube and stuff like that, to give other people the joy that we experience going to Villa. So yeah, I'm going to continue to do it, and hopefully we get many more moments like that in the future.
Well, we didn't plan.
Mate.
Yeah, and please keep doing it. We didn't plan for this, Max, but obviously our next game is against West Brom. We haven't staged this top 3 selection, so you had the West Brom game as your number 1, but it just so happens that it is your number 1 choice, and we have got West Brom next, who are currently losing to Leicester 3-0. So let's talk about your predictions. Leicester, West Brom are probably still, they're not mathematically relegated, so they've still got something to fight for. Aston Villa, the turgid football, plodding through games. Do you think Villa will turn up? Do you think Dean Smith will change the formation for the game?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think he loves the 4-3-3, doesn't he? It's been the same for a long time. It's one striker and 2 dodgy wingers around him. But at half time, I thought I sort of liked it against Man City because he changed it up. He put John McGinn on the left, which is a strange one. But he went 2 up top. He gave Keenan Davis more time because he gets 5-10 minutes here and there. He touches the ball twice. It bounces off his shin, goes out for a throw in, and we don't see him for another 2 weeks. I think giving him 45 minutes, okay, it was against Man City, so he's not going to get all that many chances. But I'd like to see him get a chance against Albion, against a side where you'd like to think we're going to get chances, in a game where you'd like to think, right, let's go gung-ho here. These aren't any good. Like you said, they're losing to Leicester. So why not go for it? I think it is a little bit, too late for West Brom. I think the 5-2 win at Chelsea was incredible. Credit to them for that. A great win against Southampton followed that, but losing against Leicester, I think it's a little too late for them. Obviously, they're probably still going to be up for it more than we are because we've got nothing to fight for, really. But the fact it's a local derby, hopefully all that will go out the window and we'll get a much needed win.
Yeah. Do you see any of the young players playing? Obviously Chukwuemeka's done really well for the under 23s and was on the bench on last night, and then you had Kessler, who's could potentially come in for Cash being suspended. You got Louis Barry. A lot of people are clamoring for him to kind of get in the squad. What would your thoughts be on sort of giving some of the young lads a run out?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think it's maybe a bit early for Louis Barry. Maybe a few bench appearances, I'd be 100% for that. I think Kessler, I wouldn't mind at all seeing him start, because I think Elmo, he's got a matter of months left on his contract. Most 99%, he's not going to be here next season. Obviously, like you said, Cash is suspended, so he's not going to play. So I'd be for it. Is it the game for him? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a local derby, but gives him an opportunity to show what he's about. Jacob Ramsey's another one as well. He hasn't done a lot in a Villa shirt, but it shows the faith that Dean Smith has in him, the fact he's played a lot this season.
I'd love to see him score.
Yeah,
I think if he gets a goal, he'd really sort of settle in and find his place.
Yeah, he's been a tiny bit safe, which you can understand 100%. He's a young lad playing in the Premier League with high expectations, so you can't really blame him. But I think I'd definitely rather see him over someone like a Ross Barkley, and just giving these youngsters a chance, because we've got nothing to play for. There's no pressure on any of them, is there? So honestly, why not? And I'd love to see what they're about, because I think, you can watch under 23 games where they're beating Burton 9-0, things like that, but you don't really get a gauge of how good these players are unless you see them against men, you see them against professional top level footballers. So look, I'd love to see it. If they don't have a good game, that's fair enough, but we've seen against Liverpool, they've got the passion, they have got ability. So yeah, why not? I don't see why not.
Well, we're going to put you on the spot, Max. What's your prediction for the game?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think we'll keep a clean sheet. Big shout, but do you know what? 2-0 Villa. We're going to get back on track and get the bragging rights.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might agree with that. I think it'll be tight for the first half, and I think I wouldn't mind if he started Keenan Davis instead of Ollie Watkins and brought Ollie Watkins on. I think Ollie certainly deserves a bit of a break. And talking about the youngsters, at some point you've got to throw them in. At some point you've got to know if they're good enough or not. And but I do think will be too much for West Brom. I think they'll cause us a few headaches to begin with, but our defence has been fantastic all season. The right back with Cash being suspended is a slight issue. I think he'll probably go with Elmo, if I'm honest. I don't think Matt Phillips has got a bit of speed, but then they're not a pacey team, West Brom. Yeah, I think it'll be 2-0. I think West Brom will run out of steam 60 minutes in, and I think we'll win 2-0. I don't think we'll see Jack back this weekend. I don't think. I mean, there's a chance we might not see him. I think he has to play at some point this season, because if he doesn't, he's not going to the Euros. I think Grealish would probably play hopping on one leg to make sure he gets on that plane. But I don't think it'll be this weekend against the Baggies, unfortunately. No. Rich, what do you think?
I agree with. I think we'll win. I think West Brom will score. So I'm gonna go slightly different. I'm gonna say 3-1. I would like to see one or two of the young ones get a game. I think Ramsey will probably start anyway. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing Chukwuemeka purely for the fact that I think Smith has got to find something to wake up Louise and McGinn a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think because we're safe, he hasn't necessarily got that kind of, we're fighting for something. And because there's injuries, he hasn't got like players breathing down their necks to get a start. So I think what he probably needs to do is put a young lad in and say, look, I'm willing to put a young player in. You need to book your ideas up, lads, and and kind of almost embarrass them into sort of pulling the socks up a little bit. So I wouldn't mind seeing him play. But yeah, I mean, having a couple of options from the bench isn't a bad thing either. No. So maybe having a Watkins to come on off the bench, or maybe having a McGinn to come on who's maybe a little bit more fired up and wants to prove a point would be a good thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go 3-1, and yeah, maybe one or two changes to the side as well.
It's a Sunday night as well. We're normally fairly good on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
We're not good on Wednesday night. Hopefully this being a Sunday night, hopefully we'll keep the run going and actually get a win.
Well, listen, we'll wait and see. Max, thank you ever so much for spending the time on this podcast and talking us through those three games. As I said earlier, they're three fantastic games, and they've certainly, over the last 24 hours, brought a number of good memories back to me. So we really appreciate you coming on and telling us your thoughts about those games.
Yeah, nice one, lads. Really enjoyed it. I knew I was coming on talking about my favourite games, so I didn't expect to sort of. It's just good to relive it, isn't it? It's so good to sort of reminisce, especially in the times we're in as well, where we can't go to games. It's just so good to reminisce about times where we were just happy at the football, because it hasn't been like that for a while, and hopefully we can get more and more of these memories next season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So just in case there is a Villa fan somewhere in the world that's never heard of you, mate, I doubt there is, but where can they find you on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram?
Yeah, Villa on Tour on YouTube, Villa on Tour on Twitter and Instagram as well. I'm on all of the socials, always talking about Villa. So if that's your thing, drop me a follow.
Good, superb, man. Well, thanks so much, mate. It's been a really good to see you, and really good to get your top three games, as Rich says. So thanks so much for coming on, mate.
We say this to every guest, and I think we're going to end up having some hell of a party. But when we are back at Villa Park for the first game back, we'll buy you a beer to say thanks for your time. And at this rate, there's going to be a good 15, 20 of us, hopefully.
You might have to put your hand in your pocket, Rich.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. I'll probably advertise something on one of the podcasts beforehand and get them. But no, Max, I'd happily buy you a beer. I think as you say, you've relived those memories, but we've relived them by being able to talk to you about them. And we weren't at the Baggies game, so to get that, to kind of feel the impact that you felt when you were there, I certainly felt like I was stood in the crowd with you. So look, yeah, really, really appreciate it. Richard, for anyone that doesn't know, where can people find us on social?
Yeah, so we are on Twitter and Instagram at Villa Park Pod. So yeah, just as we always say, give us your comments, share it with others. We like to get fans interacting in our discussions. We've had loads over the last few weeks as well, so we really enjoy that as well. So please give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share, and yeah, we'll have this out in a couple of days. So it'll be really good to get your comments on Max's top 3 and what you thought about them, and if you were there, and if you shared the same feelings as Max did on all those games. So yeah, amazing.
Superb. Well, look, thank you ever so much. So from me, Richard Bartlett.
And me, Richard Sutherland.
Keep being Villa. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, guys.